worked. Okay, this one is going to assign $1,650 for every setup. And then this one is going to assign $602,000 for every product. So hopefully you can kind of see the way that that works. And I'm going to go ahead and add dollar signs here just to remind you those are dollars. That is what we're assigning is dollar amounts. Okay, so then what we have to look at is, let me go back to my problem, make sure I'm answering. It says, number 2, the company is considering replacing its traditional costing, and it asks us to compute the product margin. So we're still doing the product margins. So this time, our manufacturing overhead applied, we're actually going to insert some lines right there. And we're going to apply it by activity. So we're going to have supporting. Oh my goodness. Okay, supporting direct labor. We're going to have batch setups. And we're going to have product sustaining. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go, okay, supporting direct labor is applied based on direct labor hours. So how many direct labor hours were worked in extreme? And that is given to us in our problem, and it's 40,000. So I take my $653 per direct labor hour, and I multiply that by 40,000, which is given to me in the problem. Do the same thing for my Pathfinder, except Pathfinder is 80,000 hours. So hopefully you can already see a difference in the way that that's allocated. Okay, then we do the same thing for batch. It's $1,650 per batch. Extreme has 200 batches. And that 200, these numbers I'm using come straight from the problem. And Pathfinder has 100 batches. And then each of them is one product. So that one's pretty easy. It's just 301,000 for each one. Okay, and then with that, we get our, and you could actually probably take this out. You don't need that anymore. So our total manufacturing cost, make sure my formula still works, 19 to 23 right here. And then I've got my product margin, 12,200, 1,731,600, and then my total, $1,719,000. Let me make sure I've got these numbers right. Something doesn't look right to me, and I just want to be sure I'm doing okay. Yeah, I think this all looks good to me. So the point is, you're seeing that Extreme, when we use activity-based costing, their product margin is a loss, whereas before we didn't know that. We're seeing that Pathfinder has a much higher project margin than we thought it did. And the reason is because when we look at activities, we get a really good idea of what's driving up our overhead cost. And Extreme is driving up our overhead cost more than we thought it was when we look at the activity-based. And so therefore, we can make a good decision about what's going on with our products. It asks you to do a quantitative comparison of the traditional and the activity-based. And you know, this is managerial accounting. You can set these up any way you want to. And I don't know if you do one of these in Connect, I'm sure it'll have it set up for you. But in real life, you could set this up in whatever way makes sense to you. But this is what you're going to want to show management if you're the one proposing this system or this change to this system. And with technology, this is not, the key to this is getting things set up as far as like what are our activities, what is driving up those activities. And once you have that information and you're working with production on that, then actually running the report is simple. But getting it set up can be a little bit okay, and then here's where you would have your three activities. And you can just copy those down. And then, depending on how you wanted to go ahead and set this up, you could do percentages, or you could do, there's lots of different things you could do with this. But if I did my direct materials, what I might want to do, let's see, we had our totals up here. And so if my traditional costing method, I could take my direct materials for extreme and divide by my total. And I would see that that's 25. And let's see, I can go ahead and format all of this to percentages. I like to add one decimal place, and that's usually the way Connect wants you to do it, so I'll try to be consistent with Connect. Same thing for direct labor. I can look and I can see that my direct labor is a percentage of my whole. And then I can see my manufacturing overhead as a percentage of my whole was 33.3%. Then I can do the same thing for Pathfinder. I think you get the general idea of what I'm doing here. Again, instead of analyzing numbers, we're analyzing percentages, which often will give us a much clearer picture of what we're looking at. Okay, so in this, it appears that 33% of our manufacturing overhead is extreme and 66.7% is Pathfinder. So then if we come down here, our direct materials and direct labor are going to be the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and type those in to save time. However, our overhead is going to be a little bit different. So when we do a percentage, oh, I need to go back and do my totals here. Okay, when we do a percentage for extreme, we see, and then I should be able, I could have done this before, but I wanted you to see that. Carry those down, and then go ahead and carry those down. And then, actually I'm going to carry it down one more and get my total. And what you're going to see is a little bit of a difference in the way that those are allocated. And again, this is what you're trying to get at in analyzing or in managerial accounting, which is what we're doing. So again, you know, when you're doing an internal report, there's no generally accepted accounting principle that says this is the way you have to do this. But you do have to make sure that it makes sense. And so you want to label things appropriately, use percentages where you can. But again, what I'm trying to do is get you to see the difference in activity-based costing, which is what we have here, where we allocate overhead based on activities, as opposed to traditional costing, where we just have one overhead rate.